A man stands in a public square, surrounded by soldiers. His crime? Not theft, not murder, not treason. He wore the wrong color. History likes to present itself as wise and orderly, a steady march of progress led by brilliant minds. But the truth is much messier. For thousands of years, people lived under rules so absurd, so cruel, and so disconnected from common sense that if they were written today, no one would believe them. These weren't rumors. They weren't myths. They weren't jokes. They were laws enforced with violence, punishment, and absolute authority. And once you hear them, modern rules won't seem so bad. 1. The color that could get you killed. Ancient Rome, power had a color. Purple. Not just any purple. A rare dye extracted from crushed sea snails. It was expensive, difficult to produce, and impossible to fake. That made it perfect for one thing, reminding everyone who ruled them. Only emperors were allowed to wear purple garments. If you were a common citizen and dared to wear it, you weren't making a fashion statement. You were challenging imperial authority. Punishment varied, but it could include confiscation of property, exile, or execution. Roman historians describe cases where people were punished simply for having a purple stripe that was too wide. In Rome, clothes didn't just show status. They could decide whether you lived or died. 2. The tax for being alive. Medieval England. In the 14th century, England introduced one of the most hated taxes in history, the poll tax. It didn't care how rich you were. It didn't care if you were starving. It didn't care if you owned land or slept on the street. If you existed, you paid. Entire families were forced to hand over money they didn't have. Officials went door to door, counting heads like livestock. The result? Rage. In 1381, peasants snapped. They burned records, attacked tax collectors, and marched on London. The rebellion shocked the ruling class and proved something timeless. You can tax people many things, but existence isn't one of them. 3. Sparta's baby inspections. Ancient Greece. Sparta didn't believe in weakness. When a baby was born, elders examined it carefully. If the child looked small, sick, or imperfect, the decision was swift. The baby was taken away. Ancient writers describe infants being left to die, often exposed on hillsides or cliffs. The logic was brutal. A weak citizen endangered the entire state. To Spartans, this wasn't cruelty. It was duty. There was no appeal, no mercy, no second chance. In Sparta, survival began at birth, and many never made it past the first judgment. 4. Pants were a crime. France. For over a century in France, women wearing pants was illegal. The law was introduced in 1800 and required women to get police permission if they wanted to wear trousers. Why? Because pants were considered masculine, and masculinity was considered authority. Women who defied the rule risked arrest, fines, or public humiliation. Even more absurd, the law technically remained on the books until the modern era, only quietly removed when it became too embarrassing to explain. For generations, clothing wasn't just fashion, it was enforced obedience. 5. Vikings divorced over bad hygiene. Vikings are often remembered as savage warriors, but their marriage laws were surprisingly practical. A woman could legally divorce her husband if he smelled bad, if he refused to bathe, if he didn't groom himself properly. Witnesses could testify that the man was unpleasant to live with, and that was enough. No trial by combat, no shame, just divorce. In a world of axes and longships, Vikings somehow understood something many societies ignored. Personal hygiene mattered. 6. Killing a cat meant death. Ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, cats weren't pets. They were sacred. Killing a cat, even accidentally, was a capital offense. Greek historians recorded cases where mobs executed foreigners who harmed cats. Even when officials begged for mercy, the crowd didn't care about intent, only the crime. Cats were linked to gods, protection, and the afterlife. Harming one wasn't just illegal, it was sacrilege. In Egypt, the fastest way to die wasn't rebellion. It was touching the wrong animal. 7. Animals on trial, medieval Europe. In medieval Europe, animals could commit crimes, and they were punished accordingly. Pigs were put on trial for killing children. Rats were charged with destroying crops. Insects were summoned to court and sometimes excommunicated. They had lawyers, judges, sentences. Some animals were publicly executed. To medieval minds, this wasn't absurd, it was justice. Law wasn't about logic, it was about order, symbolism, and fear. 8. The beard tax. Russia. Russian ruler Peter the Great wanted his country to look more European. That meant no beards, so he taxed them. Men who wanted to keep their facial hair had to pay and carry a special token proving it. No token? Officials could shave you on the spot. Beards became a financial decision. In Russia, even your face belonged to the state. 9. Banned from crying. Ancient Rome. In Rome, professional mourners were hired to cry at funerals. Eventually, authorities decided it was excessive, so they banned it. Poor people in particular were forbidden from loud public mourning. Grief became regulated. Cry too much and you could be fined. Imagine being punished for expressing sadness, not because it was fake, but because it was inconvenient. 10. 1,000 years without meat. Japan. For over 1,000 years, eating meat in Japan was illegal. Religious beliefs tied meat consumption to impurity. Laws reinforced it. Cattle, pigs, and horses were protected, not for kindness, but spiritual order. Eating meat wasn't just frowned upon, it was punished. Only in the modern era did the ban disappear, reshaping Japanese culture almost overnight. For centuries, dinner choices weren't personal, they were law. History wasn't smarter than us, it was just louder and more violent. Every generation believes its rules are reasonable until time exposes how fragile that belief really is. So the next time a law feels annoying, confusing, or unfair, remember this: at least no one's arresting you for your clothes, your beard, or your grief, and that's progress.